Our next user interface control is the segmented control. A segmented control is another user entry control where the user can select an option that's exclusive of the other options. In other words, if they select one, they can't select two. The segmented control is basically very similar in function to a radio button or a radio group control. So let's take a look at that. We're going to add ourselves a segmented control. And of course, iOS has a different look to a segmented control than what you would see in a web page for a radio group, for instance. And let's set our attributes. It by default gives us two segments, first and second. And we have the segment count right here. I would like 3 segments. I'm going to whiten these out a bit. And then I can choose the segment and set its properties. So the first segment, I'm going to call 1. Oh, didn't take because I did not hit enter. Better. Second segment, I'll call 2. And the third segment, I will cleverly name 3. All right. And now we'll just add a label. And we're just going to use this label to determine the status of the segment control. And I'm going to say my initial status is 2. So that means I'm going to need to set segment 2 to be active in code to start. So I need to do a couple of things. I need to create a referencing outlet for the segment control. I would also like to call an action when the segmented control value changes. In ViewDidLoad, I'm going to set the segmented control initial state, and I do that by setting the selected segment index. There's our control and the selected segment index property. We're going to set it to 1. And of course it is 0 based. So that will happen when we initialize our page. Now in segmented change, I just want to set the label for whatever the user selects. So if the user selects the first segment, we want to set the label text to 1. So I've copied and pasted that because you don't really want to watch me type. And there we go. So we're working with a switch and looking at the segmented selected segment index property. And for case 0, we set the label text to 1, case 1, 2, and 3. The default is going to be 2 because that's what we set the index to initially. So what this app will do is it will set that selected segment index initially to 1, which is the middle choice, which has the label of 2. And then anytime the user taps on a segment, we'll get this segment changed event. And we'll run a little switch and have the label reflect which one of the segments that the user selected. So we're going to run that on the simulator. And you can see initially the middle segment is selected and the label does indeed say 2. And when I tap on 1, it says 1, 2, and 3. So that works exactly as we expected. So that's how we can work with the segmented control.